Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. In my previous life, my childhood sweetheart was kidnapped by our enemies. Just as they were about to pour sulfuric acid onto his face, I shoved him out of the way at the last second, but that act made them hate me instead. So they turned around and dumped the entire bottle of acid on me. I was instantly burned, my skin charred and carbonized. Meanwhile, Liam, my childhood sweetheart, was rescued just in time by his arriving parents. He wasn't harmed at all. Not only did he escape unscathed, but afterward, he even changed his stance and married my adopted sister. "You were the one who chose to save me," he said coldly. "What does it have to do with me? After all, I'm a man of status. I can't spend the rest of my life with a piece of blackened charcoal." With his and my adopted sister's constant manipulation and slander, my family abandoned me. They sent me to the countryside, where I became a target for humiliation by a group of old bachelors. My adopted sister stole my inheritance and spent the rest of her life enjoying happiness and freedom by Liam's side. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day Liam was kidnapped. Don't blame me for being ruthless this time. Blame your father. He brought this on you. A son must pay for his father's sins. You were born the son of that monster, and now you'll pay with your life as a sacrifice for mine. The scruffy bearded middle-aged man spoke coldly, then suddenly yanked a glass bottle from his backpack. Liam, tied to a pillar, screamed in terror. "No, I don't want to die here. Please, my dad. Go to my dad. This has nothing to do with me." Then he spotted me standing silently at the door. His eyes lit up with hope as he cried out desperately, "Emma, Emma, please save me. I don't want to die here." The scene and his voice were all too familiar. My fingernails dug deep into my palms. The pain didn't torment me. It made the corners of my lips curve upward slightly. Heaven must be watching because it brought me back to my 16th birthday, the very day the one who ruined my life in my past life started his descent into damnation. This time I will never save this bastard again. He'll pay 1,000 times over for everything he did to me before. The bearded man suddenly turned toward me. His bloodshot eyes were filled with hatred and savagery. My entire body shuddered, not just from fear but a deep instinctive dread. But I'd already died once. What could possibly scare me now? Besides, he deserves to die. I didn't step in to stop anything. I didn't turn and walk away either. I just stood there and spoke slowly, my tone heavy with meaning. "Sir, their family destroyed yours, but the dead can't come back to life. You've lived in agony all these years. Even if you kill him with your own hands now, the rest of your life will still be unbearable. Time heals everything. Let him go and let yourself go too." Though it sounded like I was trying to persuade him, my words actually dragged him even deeper into his sea of hatred. He completely snapped and started beating. Liam furiously punched, kicked, and screamed like a man possessed. "Even if I kill you, my son won't come back. My wife won't come back either. Why should you get to die so easily? I'll never let you go. I'll destroy you, drag you to the poorest mountain villages, make you live like an animal to atone for what you've done to my son." Then he grabbed the sulfuric acid and poured it all over Liam's body. Liam let out an inhuman scream, wailing and thrashing in agony as the acid melted his flesh into countless festering holes. The air was thick with the stench of burning flesh and sulfur. It was nauseating enough to make anyone's skin crawl. After watching him fall into a state worse than death, I turned and walked away. The blue sky, white clouds, leafy trees, and gentle breeze outside painted a world completely different from that filthy basement. In this life, I would live under the sun. As for Liam, he would rot like a rat in the gutter, never seeing daylight again. Once I got out of the basement, I got straight to work. I called the police, dialed an ambulance, and notified Liam's parents. My voice trembled, my words were frantic, laced with sobs. In my past life, I had no talent for acting. But after crawling out of hell, it became second nature. 10 minutes later, the police and the ambulance arrived at the same time and took the scruffy bearded man into custody. But at that moment, he was already completely unhinged. Liam lay on the stretcher, howling in pain like a wild beast. His screams echoed through the entire building, and to me they sounded like music to the ears. Liam was disfigured even more severely than I had been in my previous life. Back then I was merely burned, parts of my body black as coal. But this time he wasn't just disfigured. He lost his sight completely. And the most ironic part? His lower body was also permanently damaged. No amount of disinfectant in the ICU could mask the heavy stench of burnt flesh in the air. He was supposed to lie in bed writhing in pain. But the moment he saw me, his entire face twisted with rage as he roared, "Emma, how dare you come here? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be like this. If you had saved me back then, none of this would have happened. I wouldn't be suffering like this. I wouldn't have turned into this hideous monster. Why didn't you save me? I begged you. I begged you. Why didn't you save me?" His voice was filled with anguish, and his pain sounded like a death sentence. If I had heard this in my past life, I probably would have been overwhelmed with guilt and regret for the rest of my days. But not in this life. Because in my past life I never would have let it come to this. I would have rushed in without thinking to protect him. That's why I ended up dying in such a tragic way. Tears welled in my eyes as I gripped my thighs so tightly that the pain brought real tears streaming down. I looked heartbreakingly wronged and vulnerable. "Liam, I know you're in so much pain right now, but how could you misunderstand me like this?" I was terrified. When I saw that man yesterday, my legs nearly gave out. But when I saw him trying to hurt you, I still tried to stall him. I called the police and an ambulance and even notified our parents, all because I was afraid he'd hurt you. Are you blaming me for not running over to shield you from the acid? I just froze in the moment. I thought once the police arrived, you'd be safe. I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I didn't protect you. If I had one more chance, I would definitely throw myself in front of you. I cried with heartfelt emotion. My explanation sounded flawless, and I managed to present myself as the kind girl who had risked everything to save him. Liam nearly exploded with rage. He thrashed on the hospital bed, trying to climb up and hit me. "Emma, you're lying. You're a liar. If you hadn't said those things to that lunatic, why would he have beaten me half to death and threatened to sell me to some remote mountain village? Mom, Dad, don't listen to her. She's the one who did this to me. She's a snake." Before he could finish, Mr. Shun, his father, cut him off with a furious shout. "Enough! You're getting more and more out of line. Who taught you to speak like that? Your mother and I were both in a meeting at the time. If she hadn't called us crying and begging for help, you'd be dead right now. I asked the police and the doctors. She was the one who called first. Is this how you repay your savior?" Although Liam was still furious, he shut his mouth obediently because he was genuinely afraid of his father. Besides, I had handled everything flawlessly from beginning to end. Not only did he have no solid proof, even if he did, I could easily twist it around and make black look like white. As for why I even bothered to report the incident and save his life, simple. How else could I take revenge? How else could I return every bit of pain he caused me in the past 1,000-fold? How else could I make him and that ungrateful adopted sister of mine tear each other apart until their lives were worse than death? It felt far better to take revenge personally than to watch from the sidelines. Liam was hospitalized. It would be a long, excruciating road. Multiple surgeries, skin grafts, treatments. The pain was unimaginable. Most importantly, the area of injury was too large. He would never look like a normal person again. His eyes had suffered nerve damage and could only be replaced with prosthetics. Originally, because of our engagement and the fact that we were childhood sweethearts, I would have been expected to visit the hospital often, even if I didn't stay by his side every day. But thanks to his insults, I had the perfect excuse to say I was too heartbroken and humiliated to go. So I didn't have to show up at all. Mr. and Mrs. Shun even apologized to me on his behalf. My own parents tried multiple times to persuade me to go visit him in the hospital, but I completely ignored them. Although they were my biological parents, they never truly loved me. The only times they would show a hint of affection, when I scored well on exams, won first place in competitions, or acted obedient and sensible, only then would they toss me a crumb of fatherly or motherly love. In my previous life, just to gain their approval, I agreed to get engaged to Liam even though I didn't love him. I forced myself to win the National Youth Piano Competition, even though I didn't like piano at all. But despite everything, the moment I was disfigured, they deemed me worthless. They immediately let my adopted sister take my place. In the end, I was cast aside, tortured, and violated to death by those filthy old men. People like them don't deserve to be called parents. I started selling my designer clothes and bags and got into stock trading. It's embarrassing to admit, but even though my parents were rich and powerful, they barely gave me any allowance. They subscribed to the notion that too much money would make their daughter go astray. So I was the poorest kid in my class when it came to pocket money. Every time I wanted to buy something, I had to get my mother's approval. Originally, I had secured a guaranteed graduate school placement, but my parents insisted that too much education was useless for a girl. They wanted me to join the company early to gain experience. But after graduation, they never brought up the company again. Instead, they just told me to focus on being with Liam and get married soon. So now that I wanted to start my own business, I had zero startup capital. All I could do was sell off the clothes and bags my mother had bought me. At least I scraped together a small amount to begin investing, and soon the stock market began to rise. Unfortunately, my initial capital was too small, so it took me 2 months to barely scrape together my first pot of gold. Just as I was about to invest in an e-commerce startup, Liam was discharged from the hospital. To celebrate, he threw a welcome back party and of course invited my whole family. The main purpose was to ease the tension between the two of us. After all, given his current condition, no young woman in our social circle was willing to marry him anymore. It was a pretty calculated move. Too bad for him, I immediately drove to my university and picked up my adopted sister, Jada. I didn't tell her it was Liam's party. She excitedly put on the latest pink strapless Chanel dress, did her makeup to perfection, and styled every strand of hair just right. But the moment she saw Liam's disfigured face, her smile froze completely, and she looked like she was about to burst into tears. Back then, she had secretly flirted with him behind my back, hoping to take my place. But she wasn't as pretty as me, her grades weren't as good, and she didn't have my reputation in high society. Naturally, Liam never seriously considered her, but he did enjoy her fawning attention. With a bright smile, I said, "Jada's been asking about you these past few days, wondering if you're feeling better." She said she wanted to visit but felt shy. Even just now, on the way, she nervously asked me if her outfit looked good, worried I might not like it. She's my sister after all, and ever since we were kids, she's always liked hanging out and playing together. Honestly, I used to get jealous as her big sister. The way I lied with a straight face completely stunned Jada. Sure, she had tried to seduce Liam before, but the moment she found out he was disfigured, she stayed far, far away. But since I just made her look so good in front of him, she couldn't possibly object. After all, the Shin family was one of the top-tier families in our circle. If she offended them, not only would her social life be over, our parents would kick her out without hesitation. So she could only lower her head shyly and murmur, "Emma, what are you saying?" Which was essentially her way of admitting everything I said. At this point, Liam might not have hated me down to the bone, but he definitely saw me as a venomous snake. He clearly wanted nothing to do with me anymore. But when he looked at Jada, who'd recently gotten some cosmetic tweaks, dressed to the nines and now looked far better than I did in my casual clothes and unwashed hair, his lips curled into a smile. That same smile used to charm countless girls, but now, with his disfigured face and twitching eyelids, it came off as downright terrifying. "Jada, it's stuffy in here. Push me out to the garden for some fresh air," he said. Jada went pale. Her legs trembled, and just as she was about to refuse, I stepped forward with a smile and gently placed her hand on the handle of Liam's wheelchair. "Sis, make sure you take good care of Liam, okay?" With that, I picked up a glass of champagne from a passing tray and walked off to chat with Mr. and Mrs. Shun. Jada was now trapped with no way out. She couldn't say no at all and had no choice but to push him outside for a walk. Her face clearly showed nothing but disgust, loathing, and nausea. Yet she still forced out a sweet, syrupy voice saying, "Liam, I'm so relieved to see you're recovering." It had been a long time since Liam heard a girl flirt with him like that. He was absolutely over the moon, and the grin on his already twisted face became even more hideous. Jada didn't even dare look him in the eye. Her expression was filled with resistance. But as long as you captured the right angle under the dim garden lights, getting a few shots of them looking intimate wasn't going to be a problem. Just then, a gentle breeze blew through the trees, and a few leaves fluttered down onto him. He instinctively reached up to grab one, then suddenly clutched her hand instead, pulling her directly into his arms like some kind of over-the-top romantic drama. It was exactly the kind of scene you'd only see in a K-drama. I was practically mashing my phone screen, taking hundreds of pictures. Later, I just picked the most intimate-looking ones and paired them with the love letters Jada used to write him, with a narrative like two hearts in love. And considering that although Liam and I were engaged, I was ever so understanding and gracious enough to let them be, the public would eat it up. When we got home from the banquet, Jada stormed into my room, furious and ready to confront me. "Emma, all because of the crap you made up. Liam wouldn't stop harassing me the entire night. Do you even know how disgusting he looks now? His whole body reeks. It's sickening." I nearly threw up several times. I lounged on the sofa, looking at her with a half-smile. "Really? But didn't you used to love being around him? I thought I was doing you a favor by pushing you two closer. If you don't like him anymore, why didn't you just reject him? You know, ever since he got those cosmetic tweaks to look more like me, I realized how envious he truly was of me." My words dripped with sarcasm and it made her snap. "Reject him with what power? You seriously think I could turn him down after what you pulled?" Then she spat. "God is so unfair. You were there too that day. Why didn't that psycho disfigure you too? That way, you two freaks could be a match made in hell." That sentence hit me like a lightning bolt. The only reason I'd gone to that place that day was because Jada said she saw Liam there. Her expression had been grim, her mood off, and she begged me to check on him, so it was all part of her setup. Liam used to be a poor scholarship student, constantly bullied at school. I was the one who kept stepping in to help him. I paid for his mother's medical treatment, arranged for his abusive father to be transferred elsewhere, and eventually even persuaded my parents to adopt Jada as their goddaughter for his sake. He practically leapt to the top of the social ladder because of me. The story of the farmer and the snake couldn't be more fitting. These two ungrateful backstabbers deserve to be shredded alive. My gaze grew darker as I stared at her like I was looking at a corpse. "If you hate him that much, then as your big sister, I'll gladly make sure you two end up together." Jada exploded, screaming, "Emma, you're so evil. I would never marry that hideous freak. Not even if I died." I curled my lips into a cold smile. "We'll see." A flicker of panic crossed her eyes. She knew that normally I was easygoing and never fought for anything, but once I made up my mind, I always followed through. Afraid I might actually force her into it, she had a driver take her back to campus in the middle of the night. Her plan was simple. Stay out of sight and the engagement would never happen. She could use the excuse of focusing on her studies, maybe go abroad as an exchange student by some time. A few years down the line, Liam would forget about her. Then she could come back and live her life as a pampered heiress, marry some handsome, rich second-generation heir. What a joke, ugly and delusional. Whether she was around or not made absolutely no difference to me. The next day, the biggest headlines in both digital and print media were those photos of Liam holding Jada under the moonlight. Thanks to the perfect angles, you couldn't see her disgusted face at all. Instead, she looked shy and affectionate. Bold, sensational headlines accompanied the images. Liam Shun, heir of the Shun family, shows affection under the moonlight. Scandal rocks high society. Shun family heir caught in secret romance with his fiancée's adopted sister. Emma Sue dumped. Adopted sister seduces the Shun family prince. Affair exposed. Each headline was more explosive than the last. Honestly, I was a little surprised myself. I had anonymously sent those photos to quite a few reporters, but they were all from smaller online outlets. You know, the kind with nothing to lose. They weren't afraid of the Shun family's power. Even if they got sued later, they could ride the wave of fame and start over. What I didn't expect was that even the mainstream media would pick up the story and run wild with it. For people with money and status, reputation is everything. And because the scandal was so damaging, even the group's stock price took a serious hit. So just 2 hours later, both families were once again sitting together for a meeting. Of course, Jada, who had snuck off in the middle of the night, showed up too. She looked at me like she wanted to tear me apart. I simply gave her a soft smile, one full of mockery and provocation. Mrs. Shun held my hand and spoke gently. "Emma, I've looked into everything. It was all a misunderstanding. You and Liam grew up together. You know how much he's always loved you. The plan was always to marry in 2 years. Now that this happened, why not just get married sooner? We know you've been wronged, and to make it up to you, we'll give you 10% of the Shun Group shares after the wedding, plus the villa estate in the east suburbs, the golf course and shopping mall in the south suburbs, all transferred to your name, and a $500 million cash gift just for your personal spending. Now that was a generous offer. Even my parents, who were used to high society deals, twitched at the corners of their mouths. Jada, on the other hand, stared wide-eyed at Mrs. Shun in disbelief. This was a billion-dollar marriage proposal all for me. If this had been before, I definitely wouldn't have been worth that much. Otherwise, they would have let Liam marry me long ago instead of dragging things out until now. But with Liam now a ruined man, yet still the only legitimate son of Mrs. Shun, marrying me was the only way to ensure the Shun family's fortune wouldn't end up in the hands of an ex-wife or some mistress's child. After all, my parents were wealthy and well-connected. I had both brains and charm. My reputation in the circle was impeccable. I could also handle the PR crisis smoothly. This was a triple-win strategy, a perfect solution. Liam glared at me coldly, his eyes full of disdain and disgust. He was certain I would marry him for the money. Mr. and Mrs. Shun's faces lit up with greedy smiles, their eyes full of calculation. Even Jada was smirking with a look of ridicule. Mr. and Mrs. Shun were already discussing where to hold the wedding. Everyone assumed I would agree. But then I spoke calmly and indifferently. "I'm sorry, I can't accept this." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at me in disbelief. Mrs. Shun rushed to ask, "Is it because the offer isn't enough? Just name your price, we'll meet it." I let out a soft sigh, as if reluctantly, then pulled a stack of pink love letters from my bag and laid them on the table. "You've misunderstood me. Last night I was in Jada's room looking for something and found this thick pile of letters in her drawer, all written to Liam. And this morning I saw the photos in the papers. Liam has always been rational and restrained. He would never lose control unless he truly loved her. There's no way those photos could have been taken otherwise. So I've decided to call off the engagement and let them be together. True love should have a happy ending. Words, when used artfully, become powerful weapons. And breaking off an engagement takes a little extra talent. Like the fact that those love letters had all been professionally forged by a handwriting expert. Though to be fair, Jada had written Liam one love letter in the past. But who cares? The moment I threw that accusation out there, the stain was permanent. Nothing could wash it away now. Jada immediately jumped up to defend herself. "Those letters aren't mine. I never wrote that many. They're fake. Emma made them up. You can see the handwriting doesn't even match." Before she could finish, her voice faltered because the handwriting was an exact match, not just in appearance but even in tone and choice of words. Liam opened a few of them and his eyes turned red. He reached for Jada's hand, eyes shining with emotion. "Jada, so you loved me this much? I'm the one who failed you. I'll make it up to you from now on, I swear." "Mom, I want to marry Jada," Liam suddenly declared. "She's the only one I'll ever marry in this life. If I can't marry her, then I won't marry anyone at all." Once upon a time those words might have carried some weight, but now he was basically a ruined man. Whether he married or not didn't make much difference, except to Mrs. Shun. Her face turned pale with fury as she trembled and snapped, "Liam, stop this nonsense. Jada is just an adopted daughter. She's not worthy of you." Jada quickly echoed, "That's right, Liam. I'm not worthy of you." As she spoke, she tried to pull her hand away, but Liam clung to it tightly, his eyes filled with sincerity. "There's no such thing as worthy or not. If you love me, that's enough. I'm willing to give up everything for you." What a touching display of affection. Mrs. Shun turned ghostly pale, her entire body shaking with anger. Jada too was shaking. She clearly wanted to break free from Liam's grip and slap some sense into him, screaming at him to stop dreaming. But she didn't dare. Instead, she looked helplessly at her adoptive parents, clearly hoping they would step in and stop the madness. But my parents, they were shrewd business people who always weighed the pros and cons. To them, marrying off their adopted daughter to a disfigured heir like Liam was the perfect deal. Meanwhile, their beautiful and capable biological daughter could be used for a better marriage alliance. It was a win-win situation for them. So they nodded and said, "Since Emma has agreed to cancel the engagement and Liam and Jada clearly care for each other, we should bless their union." Mr. Shin agreed too. With so many children, choosing a different heir wasn't a big deal. And Mrs. Shun, being a woman with no real say in the family's decisions, Had no choice but to accept it, even if she strongly disagreed. Just like that, Jada and Liam's engagement was finalized. Jada was left in complete emotional ruin. She dropped out of school and moved into one of the Shun family's villas halfway up the mountain. As for her dowry, it was modest. No stocks, no cash, just 2 connected villas worth around $10 million. And even that came from Liam's personal assets. Mrs. Shun clearly had no intention of giving a country girl like Jada anything more, especially since she had ruined Liam's chance to inherit the family business. The fact that they were even letting her through the front door was already a miracle. Meanwhile, my parents realized I was all they had left and finally started involving me in the company. This time, though, I wasn't starting from the bottom as an intern. They gave me a management-level role. After all, if I were a regular employee, how could I leverage the Shun family name to close deals and find myself a wealthy eligible bachelor? To deal with parents who cared only about profits, I had to show them my exceptional ability to lead investment projects and make strategic decisions. Using the foresight I'd gained from my rebirth, I helped the company land its largest overseas order in 5 years. The new product we launched became a nationwide and international hit. As a result, I was promoted straight from management to vice president, earning a seat at the executive table and 5% of the company's original shares. At first, I thought this was my reward, but then my mother opened her mouth. Now that you've secured your position in the company and your career is stable, it's time to think about marriage. Tonight there's a social event for outstanding young professionals. Dress nicely. If you don't meet anyone suitable, we'll introduce you to someone. People settle down after marriage, and once you have a son, you won't have anything to worry about. Then we'll feel comfortable handing over the company to you, and we can finally enjoy our retirement. What an elegant excuse. They clearly wanted me to marry for business reasons, and they still weren't ready to hand over power unless I gave them a grandson. In my past life, I longed to inherit the family business. Not because I was greedy for money or status, but because I wanted my hardworking parents to finally rest. I wanted to prove myself worthy of their pride. But now I couldn't care less about inheriting the company. I already had my hands full with booming investments in e-commerce and SH. They weren't making returns yet, but I knew soon I'd be making money in my sleep. Still, I smiled on the surface and said, "Got it, I won't let you down." That night, I attended the most exclusive singles gala in the business world. The moment I entered, dressed to perfection, I drew everyone's eyes. After all, I'd once been quite the celebrity in elite circles. But ever since my engagement to Liam, I had disappeared from public view and stopped socializing altogether. Originally, I came just to scout potential business partners, but then something unexpected happened. I ran into Shane. He was dressed in a sharp tailored suit. His fair, handsome face was framed by gold-rimmed glasses, and his thin lips curved into a faint smile as he raised his glass toward me. For a moment I was caught off guard. Shane looked like he had just stepped out of a manga, the perfect refined intellectual male lead. Truth be told, he and I were actually the original childhood sweethearts. He was the son of Mr. Shun's first wife, but after their divorce he moved overseas with her. He walked over slowly and stood beside me, looking down from his tall frame. With a warm smile and a teasing tone he said, "All these years and you still haven't grown any taller." I had to admit, even in 12 centimeters heels I still had to look up at him. He had always been tall, but now he was even taller. His words felt so familiar, like we hadn't been apart for over a decade, just a few days. I chuckled. Well, someone's got to hold up the sky. I thought I'd stay short to give the tall ones more responsibility. Honestly, I wasn't short at all, 5 feet 5 inches without heels. He laughed at my comeback. "You're still as witty as ever. This is the first time I've seen you at an event like this. Looks like you've had a change of heart." I raised an eyebrow. "How do you know it's my first time? And weren't you living abroad? You're back and didn't even invite me to dinner." He looked at me, half smiling. "Well, I'm inviting you now. Are you free tomorrow?" I clinked my glass gently with his and nodded with a smile. "Of course I am." I had been hoping to find a smart, capable, and wealthy partner. And just like that, the universe delivered. I'd made decent money from my smaller ventures, but after tasting what power and wealth felt like, I wanted more. I wanted to climb higher, build my own empire. And Shane, I had known him since we were kids. He had a spotless reputation, a calm personality, and enviable family resources. No way I was letting this opportunity pass me by. Shane had just finished his PhD at MIT last year, a real genius. While overseas, he launched a successful luxury travel startup and also developed ventures in the finance and fitness industries. He returned to China 5 months ago, the day after Liam got disfigured. From my research, I also discovered something else. It was Shane who had discreetly fanned the flames of Liam and Jada's scandal in traditional media. No wonder the rumor blew up so fast back then. I used to think it was just a coin. But clearly, he had been pulling the strings all along. So I got straight to the point. Shane, I know why you're back and I can help you. He paused mid-stirring his coffee, looking at me with a half-smile. Are you sure? I raised an eyebrow. Of course. Back then your father cheated and your mom was furious. She divorced him and took you abroad. You came back this time to take back the company and assets that should have been yours. If we pretend to be in a relationship, there's no way they'll choose anyone else's heir. He gave a non-committal smile. Pretend to date? I nodded seriously. Yes, you're single, I'm being pressured into matchmaking, and our families are evenly matched. You're not losing anything. Besides, I've got 2 high-potential projects that'll earn more than anything you've worked on so far. Then I launched into my pitch, talking nonstop about influencer incubation bases and my 3 to 5 year domestic market strategies. He listened attentively, his eyes locked on me the whole time. From daybreak to nightfall we talked. He was intrigued and agreed to the partnership right away. He even thoughtfully drove me home afterward. Coincidentally, my parents had just gotten back from work and saw him dropping me off. They couldn't stop smiling. Working with smart people made everything easier. Our influencer incubation project quickly took off. We co-branded his luxury travel business with my fashion e-commerce brand, instantly boosting both our reputations. Shane really had a sharp business mind. He was brilliant. I rarely admire people my age, but he was exceptional. Of course, while making money, I kept a close eye on Liam and Jada. They had already gotten their marriage certificate but hadn't held a wedding. Mrs. Shun still looked down on Jada's humble background, afraid her poor relatives would embarrass the family. Meanwhile, Jada couldn't stand Liam's disfigured face and feared public ridicule. At first, she managed to fake it for the money. But now that they were legally married, now that Jada had officially become part of the Shin family, she stopped pretending altogether. She started spending money recklessly, shopping nonstop when it came to choosing between money and her body. While she clearly chose money, Liam wasn't exactly bothered by the money, but he did feel lonely. She was never home, and he spent most of his time receiving treatments alone, which made him irritable. He began lashing out, wanting her to stay home and keep him company. On top of that, Mrs. Shun stirred up drama every chance she got. It didn't even take 2 weeks after their honeymoon period before the newlyweds were fighting like cats and dogs. One night, Liam got drunk and hit Jada. She had already been feeling miserable and wronged, so that was the last straw. She started screaming at him, calling him names. Ugly, freak, monster, the works. That struck a nerve. Deep down, Liam had always been self-conscious about his appearance. Her words sent him into a violent rage. He beat her so badly that if the housekeeper hadn't rushed in when she did, Jada might have been killed. Crying hysterically, Jada called our parents from the hospital, begging them to come visit. And of course, as her big sister, I brought a fruit basket and flowers purely to enjoy the drama. Her right hand was in a sling and her face was bruised and swollen in the most theatrical way possible. She sobbed uncontrollably. Mom, Dad, I want to divorce Liam. He's a monster. He's terrifying. His whole body reeks from all the medication and it oozes pus. It's disgusting. I nearly threw up so many times. My mom scolded her on the spot. He's your husband. How can you talk about him like that? You're married now. You're part of the Shen family. This is your fault for having such a foul mouth. No wonder he hit you. From now on, stop going out shopping with me. Stay home and take care of your husband. People are already laughing at us, saying we raised an ungrateful daughter. If you keep this up, don't blame me for being harsh with you. Dad nodded in agreement. Jada stared at them in disbelief. These were the same people who once promised to treat her like their real daughter, to protect her forever. Turns out they hadn't been lying. After all, they didn't treat their real daughter me any better either. With her uninjured hand, she pulled up her pant leg, revealing rows of burns, at least 20 or 30 cigarette burns, densely packed and horrifying to look at. Her voice trembled as she choked out, "Dad, Mom, if he'd been even a little kind to me, I wouldn't be asking for a divorce. But he locks me in the bathroom, burns me with cigarette butts when he's upset, and makes me eat off the floor like an animal. It was truly inhuman." My parents' faces turned grim, but they didn't say anything. So I spoke slowly with an air of calm. "What Liam did was definitely over the line. But it takes two to fight. If you hadn't done anything wrong, he wouldn't have acted that way. Deep down, Liam's a good person. He's just sick. That's why his mind is a little unstable. But it's not serious. If you just give him a child, he wouldn't treat you like this. You'd be the mother of his child. The Shun family is desperate for an heir. If you give birth to the next successor, the whole group might end up in your child's hands. You'd become the true matriarch of the Shun family. Selling a dream really does work wonders." Jada's tired, bloodshot eyes suddenly lit up with gold-tinted hope. My mom saw her expression and immediately chimed in to support my narrative. "Of course, sweetie. If you give them a grandson, he'll have a rightful place in the family, and we'll make sure the group sets aside for a grandchild too." Jada was thoroughly seduced by the fantasy. She looked at me again, eyes blazing with fire, challenging, unwilling to admit defeat, and full of arrogant disdain. "The doctor said, I'm in excellent health. I'll get pregnant soon. I'll give birth to the Shun family's eldest grandson." I smiled coldly. What an idiot. Liam had been a useless wreck for a long time. There was no way he could have kids anymore. After recovering, Jada moved back into the Shun family home and resumed her sweet, gentle act. Though it disgusted her inside, she still played the part of the doting wife. Liam thought she'd been scared straight. So every time she said something that displeased him, he'd beat her senseless again. Desperate to get pregnant, she tried everything. But no matter how much she endured, no matter how hard she tried, nothing happened. So she started sneaking out under the excuse of going to beauty salons. Only she wasn't going to salons. She was meeting other men. She wasn't stupid, though. She didn't hook up with random guys in nightclubs. Too dirty, too risky. Instead, she went after clean-cut college boys. Jada made sure the college guys she picked were good-looking and smart, just in case the baby turned out to be mentally impaired and couldn't inherit the family business. Since her timeout was limited, she scheduled her flings with clinical precision, quick, efficient, and to the point. And thanks to her high-intensity exercise routine, a month and a half later, she finally got pregnant. And her luck didn't stop there. It wasn't just a baby boy. It was a pair of twins, a boy and a girl. This news instantly sent waves of joy through the entire Shun family. But even so, Jada and Liam were not invited to the Shun Group's annual gala, because the company had already sent invitations to Shane and me. Shane had officially joined the executive team at Shun Group, and was now serving as general manager, mainly overseeing public-facing operations. In just a few weeks, Shane's exceptional performance had earned the unanimous respect of the board and shareholders. Meanwhile, Mr. Shun and Mrs. Shun had reached a private agreement. Shane would inherit the company, but a generous package of shares and fixed assets would still be allocated to Liam. That way, Liam would live out the rest of his life in wealth and comfort, and his children would also inherit a large portion of the estate. Of course, Liam had no idea any of this. So when he received the gala invitation I had arranged for him through a third party, he mistakenly thought it came from his father. Thrilled, he brought Jada along and rushed to the event. But the moment they arrived, they saw Mr. Shun standing proudly on stage. "This is my son Shane," he announced. "He holds a PhD from MIT, and was once hailed as a genius in the stock market. He's only been with us for less than 2 months and has already led our company to major new breakthroughs. I have full confidence in his future leadership, and I hope everyone here will support him moving forward." Before Mr. Shun could even finish his speech, Liam erupted. "Dad, you promised I'd inherit the company. What the hell is this? Giving it to that bastard? I don't agree. I refuse. This is my company." He turned screaming. "Shane, you bastard. Get the hell out of here." Instantly, all eyes in the room turned toward Liam. Murmurs rose, followed by panicked gasps. "He's crazy. He looks like..." A ghost. What was supposed to be a refined, elegant gala had turned into utter chaos. Mrs. Shin quickly shouted, "Liam, this is not the time or place. Go home now. I'll explain everything to you after this." But Liam had always assumed the Shin group was his by default. Even after his disfigurement, he never doubted his position in the family. Now, in the face of this betrayal, he was completely unhinged. "I'm not going anywhere. Get Shane out of here right now. He has no right to be here." Before he could say another word, I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. "You don't get to talk about my fiancé that way." Liam froze, stunned. "Shane is your fiancé?" Shane calmly pulled out a handkerchief and gently wiped my fingers, smiling. "Yes, we got engaged a few days ago. Just a small ceremony with our families." Liam turned pale as a sheet, his hands clenched into fists, his body trembling as he tried to suppress the urge to curse me out. He knew that the moment he insulted me, Shane wouldn't let it slide. He ground his teeth and forced out, "Well then, I wish you a long and happy life, but get out of my company. This is still my company. My wife is carrying the Shun family's rightful heir. Even if I don't inherit it, my son will." Shane let out a soft, mocking laugh. "You sure that baby's actually yours?" Liam's fists tightened. His jaw clenched so hard his teeth were about to crack. "If it's not mine, whose is it?" "Yours. Say that again and I swear I'll kill you." I smiled sweetly and linked my arm through Shane's. "Well, you never know." Just then, dozens of phones around the room lit up with notifications. One by one, people started pulling out their phones and playing the explosive videos I had leaked. Footage of Jada's secret meetups with college guys. And just to make sure Liam didn't miss it, I personally handed him a tablet I prepared in advance. The moment he saw it, his eyes turned bloodshot. He snapped. He turned on Jada and wrapped his hands around her neck. "You filthy, you dare cheat on me? You dare make a fool of me like this? I'll kill you." Jada thrashed and choked, struggling in pain. "Help! Somebody help me." Everything happened so fast. People were still too busy watching the video clips in shock. The security guards I had thoughtfully arranged were out having dinner. A few guests started to step forward to intervene, but I held up a hand and stopped them. "Liam has a mental illness. He gets violent when he's triggered. Don't go up there and try to help," I said calmly. "It's dangerous. I've already called the police. They'll be here any minute now." 5 minutes later, the police arrived. What they saw was straight out of a nightmare. Jada lay collapsed in a pool of blood, her body riddled with over a dozen stab wounds. Liam was drenched in blood, still holding a knife in his hand. He was trying to cut open her abdomen, intending to rip the baby out with his own hands. He didn't succeed in taking out the baby, but her intestines were already scattered all over the floor. The scene was both grotesque and horrifying. Several people vomited on the spot. Technically, Jada could have died with her body intact, but fate had other plans. In a final stroke of luck, she kicked him hard in the groin with her high heels. The pain made Liam drop her. But then he picked up a steak knife from a nearby table and drove it straight into her heart. Liam was later diagnosed with a severe mental illness, legally insane. He was immediately committed to a psychiatric facility. As it happened, I'd recently been considering investing in the healthcare industry, psychiatric hospitals included. I planned to assign a few of my best people to take special care of him so he'd finally learn what hell on earth really felt like. Jada's funeral was lavish, thanks to a hefty compensation package from the Shun family. But in truth, I personally dumped her ashes down the sewer. Garbage belongs in the dark, filthy places it came from. My parents were so traumatized by the whole bloody spectacle that they both fell ill. Being the beautiful daughter I am, I sent them straight to a luxury retirement home, each with a private VIP suite where they could live out the rest of their days in lonely silence. That same day, I officially took over the company. And right then, Shane handed me a document. I had just been gifted 30% of the company's original shares, making me the largest shareholder. I blinked in surprise. "Where did you get so many shares?" "My parents never released that much equity, not even over the years." Shane gently placed a freshly sliced piece of steak on my plate and said, "Half came from your mom. She said it was part of your dowry if I ever married you. The rest I bought myself." Every time the company released shares, I bought them. Little by little, I ended up with quite a bit. Back then, I figured if I couldn't become your husband, then at least I could be your boss. Back when we were kids, I used to drag him into playing pretend. He was always the king. I was the queen. I'd even told him once that I'd marry him when I grew up. I thought it was just a child's joke. I had no idea he'd taken it to heart. Sensing I'd gone quiet, he reached over and gently ran his fingers through my hair. His voice was warm, affectionate, a little helpless. That was all years ago. Don't overthink it. Eyes are on the front of our faces for a reason, to look forward. He raised his glass and smiled to the future. Miss Sue. I raised mine and smiled back to our long and prosperous future. His eyes lit up instantly. Yes, to our long and prosperous future.